Mitchell Stankovic and Associates and the Underground Ideas into Action presents The Underground Chats, authentic conversations with credit union thought leaders. Today's chat, Serving Across Borders, with Maria Martinez, President and CEO of Border Federal Credit Union.
Good morning, Maria. How are you?
Good morning, Sue. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So tell us a little bit about Border Federal Credit Union and your community and hopefully how your credit union family is doing.
Okay, so Border Federal Credit Union, we were started back in 1954, and the credit union was born inside Laughlin Air Force Base. So it was a group of military and civilian personnel that brought it all together. We still have a branch there, and that's the original. It's not the original branch. We ended up building another one. Then in the 70s, the credit union expanded to serve 3 Texas counties, which one of them is right on the border, which is Del Rio. It's part of that county. And it was in 1980 when we moved into the main office outside of Laughlin Air Force Base. And then in 1987, then it became federally charter, because it used to be state charter, and then we became federally charter. In 1994, I was hired here as the vice president of lending. My husband got a job in Del Rio, so I looked for a job, and they just happened that there was an opening, and I landed that job as a vice president of lending. And then in 1997, 3 years later, I became the CEO when the CEO retired at that time. Since then, we've expanded our field of membership in 2011 to 13 Texas counties, which is mainly in the border counties with Texas and Mexico. And then we've done a lot of work here in the community. We started doing financial counseling, which that was one of my purposes, to do financial counseling, because we serve an underserved and unbanked community. So I wanted that to be the focus of our guidelines in our mission. So we started doing that, and then just things fell in place. We applied for the Community Development Financial Institution designation, which is the CDFI, and we became a CDFI in 2010. And since then, we've received several grants, which have allowed us to help the community, especially the low-income community, because we can take a little bit more risk on those loans, and we can help them with financial counseling and guiding them through other processes. We also do the VITA program, which is a volunteer income tax program, and we've been doing it for, I believe it's at least maybe 15, 16 years. I think we celebrated 15 years last year. And so we're on the 16th year of doing voluntary income tax. And so that's a program that we've been doing, and you should see our lines on that. We just get bombarded, and because many of them are our members. Some we call them clients because they're not our members, but they still come to us year after year to use our services. And then we do a lot of other stuff. I mean, we're very involved in our community. We have a youth program that we put together about maybe 18 years ago. And that program is to attract youngsters between the ages of 14 and 18. And we bring them into the credit union for a complete week, for half a day. And then we teach them anyway from business etiquette to how to use a debit credit card, how to read a credit report, and just anything that has to do with finances. So, we do a lot of that. And then we do a lot of fun stuff too. So we do a Halloween contest, and my staff gets into the contest, and then we invite the community to come see us. And then my employees, they put on skits, and it's just a lot of fun that we have. And we have a group of young professionals. They call themselves the Pulse. And these young professionals, they do a lot of fundraising for the needy children in our community. And they have a mixture during the winter to get coats donated for these needy children. And we also help people in Mexico, needy families in Mexico. We do fundraising for them. So there's always something going on here at the credit union.
Well, as you were talking, I was just thinking about the idea of a credit union being an integral part, kind of the community center, in the sense of days gone by when you had that community feeling, where you went to your community bank and now your community credit union. I just love that. And you touched there on the idea that you work not only with your field of membership in the United States, but you're also working with your community in Mexico. And so tell me a little bit about how that's all worked. How do you navigate the border and to ensure, like you said, that you can make a difference?
Right. So because two of my branches are in border towns. So, I mean, basically you can walk across. It's maybe a 10-minute drive, or if you're right on the border, you can walk the bridge and you're in Mexico. So with that in mind, even though our field of membership is within Texas, many of our members also either live or work in Mexico. Many of them, it's because maybe maybe it's cheaper to live in Mexico, and so they commute. Many of them work for some of the factories in Mexico, but they live here in the United States, so they go back and forth. So yes, we have a lot of our members that use our services in Mexico, in means of a debit card or credit card that they're using. Out of the 13 counties that we serve, of course, 2 of those counties are in neighborhoods with Mexico. And so we do a lot of things with them. As a matter of fact, many times we'll have vendors that come and visit us, or any other visitor that we get. And we go across to Mexico just to have lunch, because it's right there. We can go and visit them. And also I have employees that live in Mexico. So they commute on a daily basis. They come and go. So we don't do pesos or any of the exchange, for the members. But still, we do a lot of the businesses with people that go over and across. The employees that live in Mexico, they commute on a daily basis. And I don't know if you remember, but during the times when there were restrictions on coming across, there were times when people had to wait 2 to 3 hours just to cross the border. So even though it may be a 10-minute commute, it turned into a 2 or 3 hour because the borders, happen to be stocked up, with cars. So it's been a challenge on that. But our debit cards and credit cards get highly used by, I even use it in Mexico. And of course, our members, they don't mind the foreign fees. We waived them for about a year, but then we went back and implemented those fees because there's many users that use that program. Yeah, one of the important things here is having bilingual staff, because when you offer those services to anybody in the border, you cannot do it without having people that can speak the language. And it's not that they don't speak English, it's just that they feel more comfortable having a conversation in their native language. And so that's why my staff, we have about maybe 95% of our staff is bilingual.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, that's you're touching on so many issues that you've just, if you will, focused and said, this is what our mission is. This is what we believe in. And when you were talking about the crossing at the borders, one of the areas that we're really exploring is diversity of thought and the idea that there aren't any boundaries. And, sometimes we put some of these breaks in our minds, the lanes that we're in, or the boundaries, the borders, the way we think. And I think you have always managed to navigate that even during some of the most difficult times. So you've dispelled a couple of thoughts from my perspective. When I was younger, I'd spend time in Southern California and specifically in San Diego. And we would cross the border all the time. I mean, it was just natural to go and I spent a summer there, and we would go across the border. Tijuana was right there. We had a wonderful Rosarita Beach. And I look at what we hear on the news and stuff today, and it seems that is days gone by. But what you're now speaking of is your people coming and going and recognizing that your mission is to serve. So, so with what we're seeing today and the number of people that want to come to the United States, how are you navigating that, the immigration status? And this is just, it's me going off on a question that I was just curious about based upon what you said. Yeah.
Well, and we're facing that. You probably heard, Sue, about all the incoming traffic right now from immigrants. And that does affect us because we're right on the border. But we had the same issue about maybe 3 years ago. And, the same influx of people that were coming in. At that time, one of the things that I wanted to do is to see these people are coming here to stay. Many of them, come here for asylum. And at that time, they were coming for asylum and they were being granted a letter that would put them in a position to go in front of a court and acquire, some sort of residency in the United States. Because many of these people come and they bring money, many of them. They were put in a situation where they were carrying cash with them and where they could lose it, or they could get robbed. And so at that time, I remember that I put together a letter and I went out to NCUA and I asked them if there was any way that we as a credit union could potentially serve these members by providing them with some sort of counseling, but at the same time trying to establish an account where they could establish an account and wire funds to their relatives or receive a wire from their relatives so that they can continue their journey. Because I could not establish their field of membership or with their residency, I was not successful on that. But I still think that there's a big need to do that. We are in the border, and many of our members, they bank with us, and then when they leave, many of them they retire in Mexico. They either stay in Mexico but they don't leave the credit union. They leave the United States to go retire because they can live more comfortably somewhere else, but they still continue doing business with us. So that's why I think it's so important that once we establish a relationship with our members, we must continue that with them. And so, and that was my intention when I was trying to bring in these people into the credit union, because once you establish a banking relationship with an institution, I feel that you're very loyal to them and you stick with them and then you stay in the system. And the main thing is to get these people into the system, to bank them, because they're coming in unbanked. And what do? They go and use the payday lenders. They go and use services that are, very expensive for them, and they're not good. Credit unions are good for them, but they're not using us because we don't expose ourselves to their needs. So it's
So,
very
my work with World Council and your work with World Council, and it just, and all of the work that they've done in Mexico. And these are the things that my brain starts doing. Here's your intention to serve and to, frankly, it's a safety issue. As well. And when you think about that status and the safety issue and how we try to bridge these borders based upon, World Council's efforts. So I'm fascinated to see in the journey that we are faced going forward with the difference between refugees and immigrants. We seem to have lumped all people that want to the normal migration or in our country, that there are different circumstances. And the idea of having some place to be safe with your money and to be able to return it back to your families and to do those things, just to me is so legitimate. So anyway, what popped into my brain is, boy, if Mexico, the Mexican initiative of credit unions could partner with you, then maybe we could see some of this all,
that would be
take
awesome.
care of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the other thing is that border towns are very unique because the way we operate is we have that connection with Mexico. There is definitely a connection. Even anytime there's a disruption in the border, whether it will be the port of entry being closed, it disrupts the economy in the border towns. Like right now, people are not able to come shopping from Mexico. Therefore, our retailers are suffering here in town. And so there's always a disruption. I just feel that for us as credit unions, we need to be innovative. Yes, because I think if our members move away, we need to have the tools that they can still be served by us wherever they go. But I feel that the only border that we have is the lack of us to be progressive or attentive to our members' needs. And that's where we need to focus. We need to make sure that we don't establish borders for ourselves.
I 100% agree. And I think that there's that challenge of our minds and our hearts being open to be able to do what we need to do. And that kind of leads me to my next question. And that is, you've just like all of us have gone through 2020, and now you're, into 2021. And I'm sure there were transitions that you went through. Were you alluding to those when it came to the community, the economic impact within the community? But what other types of things have you run into?
Well, I'm a very strong believer on financial counseling. I think that that's really what's helped us throughout the years to make sure that our members are faithful to us and that they establish themselves financially strong within our communities. And I feel that we continued, even though we had a lot of hiccups in the system because of COVID. We never stopped doing financial counseling. My employees, continue to do that, whether it was going to be by appointment or whether it was going to be through a Zoom conference call or by texting, whatever method we had to use, we still did it with the financial counseling, because I feel that that's a very strong process within the credit union. I think if we're not doing that yet, I mean, it's wrong of credit unions not to be doing that. The other thing is it's reaching out to Hispanics. I think right now there's a lack of, I don't think it's knowledge, but I don't think many credit unions feel that we should be servicing a big minority group that it's growing substantially. And I think that we need to be attentive of these groups. And it's not just Hispanics, it's other minority groups that are growing, because each community has those minority groups, and we need to be very attentive to helping them. 2020 brought a lot of changes to us, but it also brought a lot of opportunities. And I think if we can just focus on those opportunities, we can become better credit unions to help anybody that lives in our community. And we need to be focused on it.
And you and I are both serving on the DEI Collective Board, and we're looking at the ways that we can break down systemically some of those issues. And I think you're one of the models, if you will, of deploying initiatives and being consistent to that, not having it be an event-driven initiative. It's really, I think that's representative of what you just talked about, and the fact that no matter the circumstances, you were still very committed to your financial education and to bringing people into the system. I want to explore something with you. With 2020 having so many moments that brought awareness to all of us across, as you said, all people of color, all diversity, really. I have been struggling a little bit with the violence that I've seen, and not only what's taking place at this moment, but thinking about your region and the difference between a refugee and an immigrant. Have you experienced that on a personal level, Maria? What you're seeing? Yeah.
No, I think it's because also the way a person positions themselves too. I used to be embarrassed or intimidated by going into a group that didn't look like me. And I don't anymore, but I think it's because I've learned through the years that that's not me. And whatever I've done in life has positioned me to not be intimidated by anybody because I'm a woman or because I'm Hispanic. But you probably know my story that I tell many times, that when I knew that the CEO position was open back then, I was pregnant and I hid my pregnancy. And I don't know if I would do it again, but maybe I would do it again because I would be afraid of me not getting the job. But those are some of the things that maybe many women also face, not just Hispanic women, but many women face that, of pregnancy, and whether you can tell somebody that you're pregnant if you're applying for a job, and they may not give you the job because they think you're not going to fulfill your duties to the full extent. Although I think pregnancy just makes you stronger because you have a
Well,
child. Yeah.
I happen to agree with you there. I mean, I've had a couple, and I think that, but it is interesting. That's an interesting point that you just made, because the transitions, especially with, my generation in coming into the workforce, and women just really being part of the workforce, and the whole idea of what impact it would have. And I know in my particular case with my oldest, I came into the workforce and I took off and she was late. And so that put me in a position where we didn't have the leave. So I had to come right back. And I remember that emotional side of trying to manage all those things, but being very stoic about it, because it wasn't something that I wanted anybody to be able to label. So so that's interesting. And with all the work that I've done around the world, everyone is at different levels, and in some respects equally discriminated against, in terms of what takes place. When I look at the future, and I see people like you that really stay focused on what your mission is. Do you see the evolution? Like you mentioned, serving Hispanics, and we see a lot of data today that our world, the world we know it, the United States, will be people of color because we are representative of the world. And so the question becomes, is this really minority? Or is this going to be the future of what credit unions were built to do?
Yes, yeah, and we need to be positioned to accept those changes. And in my community, because we're basically the majority of the people that live here look like me, but in many other areas, it's not like that. But there's minority groups, they're still in existence. One of them would be the Asian American. They're growing, and we need to be positioned to service them. So they're only another group, but there's many groups like that we need as credit unions. We're the perfect answer for any minority group, and they need us, and we need to be positioned for that.
I agree. And I think that credit unions were born out of these times, to serve a need. You mentioned the payday lenders. You and I both saw what was a non-existent service 20 years ago, if you will, that today is 20,000, or more. So I think that we have to recognize that as our business evolves, doing the right thing has to continue to drill down. And we're going to see a majority of people, have a need for credit unions. So I love that. I was just thinking that one of the things we want to do is ask you the question of the world would be a better place if. So I was thinking that I would really love it if you would answer the question in English, but also answer it in Spanish.
Oh, yes, I can
Wouldn't
do
that be wonderful if we could add that to it?
Yes.
Okay. So the world would be a better place if.
Okay, so the world would be a better place. I think if I could engage every single credit union member in financial counseling program, I think we would become stronger, because I'm a strong believer that we can build better communities when we have progressive members, when there's educated consumers. And so to me, financial counseling has played a big role in how we've operated within the credit union, and because I've seen the results from our members. So that would be my answer to that. El mundo sería mucho mejor si pudiéramos tener a todos nuestros socios en un programa de consultoría, donde pudieran ellos aprender un poquito a ser mejores consumidores yo pienso que el ser mejor consumidor hace mejores comunidades y nos trae mejores resultados a todos. Gracias. I think Spanish it's very much needed. My kids are bilingual. They may not be 100% fluent on being bilingual, but they can defend themselves, and it has opened additional doors for them because of them knowing the language. I think that's very helpful. Although when I was growing up, many parents at that point didn't want their kids, especially if you were Hispanic, didn't want their kids to speak Spanish because they wanted them to focus on knowing the English language so that they could prosper. Not knowing that I think that was not good. They should have taught them both languages because it's better for them.
Absolutely. And I was going to say that, if you will, my generation, my friends were being taught not to speak Spanish. They spoke Spanish at home, but they didn't speak Spanish out in the community and so on. And it was all about assimilation. And I remember them, and in today's world, quite often they can understand Spanish more than they will speak Spanish. And so we talked about that generational shift and how important that's been. And, your credit union's now been there to the point where you've got multi-generations that are committed to the credit union. So I'm sure you're seeing that evolution as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I'll leave you with one final question, and that's a couple things of ideas and action. What would you like people to do based upon this conversation?
Well, first of all, we know that credit unions are indispensable in this world. We know that. But I also think that credit unions should be there at the top of the runway for anybody that's knocking on their doors. And if they're not knocking on the doors, then we need to be going out there and searching for them. And for that, we need to start, looking like the people that are out there, whoever we're going to be serving in the future.
Yes, we have to be representative of and represent the people that we're going to serve to truly understand. So,
another thing is that I don't think there's many businesses that believe in the people helping people philosophy. We do. And because we do, we tend to do things a little bit different, but we do it with a heart. And not too many businesses do that. Credit unions do it. And we pass that on to our staff because even our staff feels that way. And I see it with my staff. We put together this fun committee within the credit union, and it's just made up of staff, and they're supposed to be doing fun things for our staff. And they do it, but then in return, our employees are better with our members. But we focus inside so that it could expand into the membership.
It's true. If you live it, it's part of what you do, right?
Yes.
And so we're lucky enough to work with people that share our belief systems. So
definitely. Yes.
It's fabulous.